Hemingway's chair. What's this sudden urge to write novels then, Michael, after all the things you've done in the world?
Well, greed mainly. Greed, plain greed. No, I mean, it's not a sudden urge. Actually, I think I've been a writer all my life, but people tend to think writing Monty Python or ripping yarns or American Friends isn't quite the same, because it's sort of writing for the screen. But you still have to create characters and locations and all that. And writing a novel it's a way of doing it without anybody else interfering. It means you take the complete rap for it in the end. If it's no good, you're the one to blame. But at least you do it yourself instead of having to go through, a cameraman and director, write it for an actor.
Yes. And you enjoy creating characters, do you? Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Hemingway's Chair is about a man running a small post office, and he has an obsession about Ernest Hemingway, the great writer. But it's also about the closing down of post offices and centralisation of communications and all of that, which is remarkably apposite in Ireland, because we're worried about that all happening here now. Yeah. Local post offices being closed down and everything being centralised in bigger places, because you're talking about the social aspects of local post offices and so on. Yeah, people talking to each other.
Yes, I mean, the post office, unlike almost any other institution in a community, is where everybody gets together. It's not just sort of, some people may go to the pub and some may not, some may go to the local political club and some may not, but everyone ends up in the post office. And it is a place, even if they get there by crossing a busy road and they have to queue for 5 minutes to get to the desk, at least they talk to each other about it. And I think that the idea of a world where people sit at home in their little sitting room and press a lot of buttons and pay their pension, their electricity, their mortgage, they don't need stamps anymore. That to me is not a world of advanced communications. It may be technically advanced, but actually in human terms, it's... Thank you. In human terms, it's quite the opposite. You actually rely on people talking to each other. It's the only sort of way, the only defence we have against somebody telling you, this is what you've got to do, you will do it. And the book is also about the sort of the oddball, someone who stands up for his own rights, however sort of unimportant they may seem to be, and that I feel that's very important.
And the downside of this non-communication, as it were, people socialising with each other and all of that, this is what dehumanises us or whatever.
I think it probably does, or it reduces the diversity of our experience. I mean, it means that we're all treated like a unit, a consumer unit, which can be quantified and can be sort of used and manipulated. Whereas if we're sort of talking to each other, we hatch our own little plots, we have our own little bits of gossip. And that, I think, is a bastion against somebody telling you, what you should or shouldn't do.
This man has the obsession about Ernest Hemingway. You did a lot of work on Hemingway, presumably, research?
Yeah.
So what whiskey does he drink, then? Or did he drink, rather?
Just about anything.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Ernest drank anything, virtually.
Really?
He'd have whiskey probably first thing in the morning, a couple of bottles of champagne, brandy. I mean, it was really he drank almost as much as Winston Churchill, as far as I can gather.
And why did he end his life in such a dreadful way?
Because he couldn't write anymore, and he believed in the legend of the great American writer. He believed that's what he was. That's how he lived. He believed in the legend of the man of action. Get out there and fight wild animals and catch 500-pound marlins and all that. This was his life. And as soon as he lost that capacity to do that, and certainly as soon as he lost the capacity to write, he just fell apart. And I think the saddest thing about Hemingway that I learned was that he was asked about a sort of a year before he killed himself to write for the Kennedy inauguration. Greatest living American author, write something stirring for the inauguration. And he couldn't do it. He just tried, and he threw away bits of paper after bits of paper. In the end, he just couldn't do it. For a man as proud as Hemingway was of America and his sort of role in it, I think that must have been utterly destroying. And within a year, he killed himself.
He killed himself, indeed. Are you reading or signing tomorrow in Hughes and Hughes or wherever it is?
Whatever anyone wants, I'll do it.
I see you read it.
I'll tear the book. I'll eat the book. I'll eat it with tomato ketchup if anybody buys it.
As long as they come.
Yes, as long as they come.
From 12 to 1, you've no pride left at all, have you?
I have no pride. I didn't have much anyway. that much anyway.
Didn't you indeed? Yeah. So, well, now let's face it. Since Monty Python, your great train journeys and so on have been a terrific success for you. They've really done very well for you, have they not?
Yes, I mean,
of new fans and all of that.
Yes, the documentary side was something which I came to quite by accident. I'd been on a radio show in England, banging on about transport and how I thought railway travel was infinitely more civilized than travelling by car in traffic jams. And the next morning, a producer rang me up and said he was casting around for one person to finish a series called Great Railway Journeys of the World, and would I do the one that was left, which happened to be from London to the north of Scotland. And he thought, it's not very glamorous. You're not going to go to Peru or Russia or anywhere like that. But as an ex-train spotter, it appealed to me. So I said, yes, I'd have a go. And once I'd done that, people sort of thought, well, this man who's previously been a complete idiot can also, be an idiot on a documentary film. And that led to being asked to do Around the World in 80 Days 7 years later.
Never refuse anything, Michael. That's it. Always have a go. Always have a crack.
Absolutely.
Do you think Monty Python would get under the net now if it was suggested as a new effort?
Well, I'm not sure. I think now there's so much sort of management in television, and they want to quantify everything before they put it on. They want to know exactly what it's going to be about. And when we did Monty Python, we got the go-ahead entirely on the whim of one man who happened to work for the comedy department at the BBC, and he'd had rather a good lunch. And he came into this room where the Python cast sat, accompanied by Barry Took, who Barry was a saint-like figure who was the only one of us who had a suit, and he went to the BBC on our behalf.
Yes.
We were a rabble, and we sat there,
and this is including Cleese now.
Cleese was a rabble then, and still is in many ways. And we all sat there, and Michael Mills came in and said, "Well, a few questions about this show. Will it have music?" And we said, Well, we're not sure. Fine. Will you have guest artists? Well, we're not quite sure. Do you have a title? Not yet, no. So, it was the world's worst job interview. And yet, at the end of it, Michael Mills stood up and said, "All right, well, I'll give you 13 shows, but that's all." And he disappeared. So,
wonderful.
Wonderful. I don't think that sort of whim would exist anymore.
You don't think so? You don't think so, no?
No, I think there'll be many, many other people who'd have to know exactly what you want to do.
Crazy things, yes, crazy
things. And that show began because there wasn't really a huge management structure at the BBC. It was unwieldy. It was a vast organisation, and down in a basement we could make our shows, and no one knew about what we did in the first series. No one knew at all.
Wonderful.
We just sort of carried on, and when they got to find out, they were rather displeased.